In-depth discussion ranging from politics, health, finance, sports, and so much more. Ground Zero, Season 2.
Hello, the people of Uganda. Most welcome to this edition of UBC Ground Zero. Ampaire Amon Otega is my name. And it is a privilege and honor that you are joining us. For those who have joined us, and we must thank you for those who have been part of us from the time we started broadcasting in the morning with eating breakfast on UBC Radio. This program of UBC Ground Zero is always aired on 5 radio stations covering the whole country. We are live on UBC Radio in Kampala on 98.0 FM and 97.4 FM in Arua, 99.4 FM in Lira, and we're also live on UBC Butebo, which is in eastern Uganda. In case you are in Mbare, we are 96.9 FM. In case you are in Soroti, we are 98.4 FM, and we're also live and clear on Western Nile Radio in Arua on 98.0 FM, and we're also live on UBC Magic Radio on 100 FM, and we are also on Voice of Bundbujo in Bundbujo. I have a privilege and honor to have a very special team of guests in the studios of UBC who are going to be educating, inspiring, and informing us, the people of Uganda, on this very edition of UBC Ground Zero. There is a sit-down strike. The people of Uganda, and especially the traders and taxpayers, are hot and boiling because of a number of issues that they are facing in their sector, and all center on many issues, but so much concerning the tax administrator, tax regulator, and tax collector. We are talking about Uganda Revenue Authority, and we have put together a team of special guests in the studios of UBC who are going to be helping us understand this whole conflict and how best we're going to go about it. I have a representative of the taxpayers. I have a representative of the traders. I have a representative of the tax regulator or corrector, what is we call URA, and I have a professor of taxation who is going to be helping us on how best tax correction and regulation should be done in this country. A privilege and honor to have in the studios of UBC Ibrahim Bosa Chibuka, who is the Assistant Commissioner, Public and Corporate Affairs, coming from Uganda Revenue Authority. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Amon, and a very good morning to Uganda.
Interesting. We also have a privilege and honor to have Ajemba is the deputy spokesperson coming from Kasita, Uganda. Welcome, sir.
Yeah.
Welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Amon. Is it Amon?
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you very much for the invitation, and it's a privilege being here. Very good morning to everyone, especially the taxpayers and all the others.
And the traders.
The consumers at large, and the general public.
Interesting.
Hoping for the best.
Interesting. Also privilege and honor to have Professor Chan Francis, social author, Kent University, and the Executive Director, East African School of Taxation. Welcome to this edition of UBC Ground Zero, sir.
Thank you very much, because I'm really even happy because this is the a program or the subject which make us to understand the core value of why we people pay tax, and not only that, we are here to educate them because we are professional people on taxation.
Interesting. A privilege and honor to have Dr. Christopher Rwanga, Head of Research and Ideology, coming from Uganda People's Congress.
Wonderful. Fantastic morning and warm greetings from UPC Party President, Honorable Jim Makena, UPC Fraternity at Uganda House, and in the country, and in Africa, and in the greater diaspora. They are tuning in and they are watching this program with a lot of sensitivity, because from day one when UPC was in power, its policy was a just, fair, affordable tax. Thank you, sir.
Interesting. To have this discussion, we would love to start with the statements of the Honorable Nsereko, who raises the traders' grievances and in the Parliament about the sport demonstration and calls for consideration as we come back for the discussion.
I would like to bring it to your attention that the CBD, which is the Central Business District, which I represent in this Parliament, has been undergoing a sit-down strike from our traders. The business persons of this country who contribute a lot in form of taxation and in form of development of our nation are hurt, are boiling. And Right Honorable Speaker, the reason is exactly what you did through your communication. One, the high-handed methods used by the Uganda Revenue Authority in execution of its cardinal statutory duties of farming taxes, but also our inconsideracy in passing taxes in this August House. There is a reason as to why people are angry towards the political class that they think is inconsiderate to their sweat, to their desires, and being the roadblock towards their quest for success in business. Right, Honorable Speaker, the reasons for their closure this time are very clear. One, the introduction of the electronic physical receipting and invoicing solution without proper awareness and technical advice, what you've been hearing called IFRIS. This in return states that each wholesaler downtown must purchase a point of sale machine and must have the technical ability to operate it, mount it and connect it to the portal, and for every transaction they conduct, there must be a loop between them and the Uganda Revenue Authority. We are not saying no. We are talking about the canon of plowing taxes and taxation, which is certainty. When I set up a business, I must be certain of the taxes that I'm going to encounter, that is one, but also the proper system of plowing them from society. Now, these people do not have the technical ability, that is number one. Two, they have not been educated on the use of the IFRIS. But also, it is uncertain that when it comes at such a time when they need to invest, they are running on loans, it is choking to them. Secondly, Right Honorable Speaker, the traders are saying, when I go to import goods from abroad, I must be certain of the taxes that have been captured in the tax codes here by Parliament. But someone goes and procures goods. When they arrive, they are given a value. They pay a certain value. After payment of a certain value, there is a second evaluation. And they tell them you have to pay for a top-up. This issue of top-up is creating confusion. Then even after paying for a top-up...
Is a top-up outside what was approved by this House?
Yes, absolutely. It is at the discretion of a customs officer.
A discretion at the customs office, so much hurting and boiling, as Honorable Nsereko suggests on the floor of Parliament, that the people of Uganda are not in any way happy on how URA is doing their statutory and cardinal duty of correcting taxes. I have a privilege and honor that we have URA in the studios and also a representative of the same traders who have been complaining, but also they are on the sit-down streak. I don't know whether you have ended it, Jemba, or is still going on. And most people still think that you have turned this into a political matter, that you would have to meet the president and explain your issues to him and see how best you can revise this. And also URA is giving its position, but we'll have to learn a lot from you today, and as we have heard from the suggestions of members of parliament. Let me start with you, Jemba, to put into this perspective and also enable the listener who is part of us from the other side of radio to understand the basis of this. Jemba?
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning once again to listeners of UBC all over the country. Yeah, first and foremost, I would like to say that the business community and the general trading public in this country understand and appreciate the role of taxes in any economy. And many of them, if not all of them, have been paying their taxes and meeting the obligations as such. However, some of the sticky points is the introduction of IFRIS, which we all thought that maybe it would have been enrolled from a different level, not rolling it out to all Ugandans at the same time. And the reasons are valid. One of them, the cost involved to buy the point of the point of sale machine. Ugandans or traders are not ready with that kind of money when you introduce a new system and you expect them to immediately purchase or use their sale machine. And point of sale machine wasn't the only other issue that comes with the with IFRIS. There is system integration with URA systems, and this involves buying a software which costs between $2,000 to $7,000 after installing an integration, depending on the size of your business. All these are sticky. That aside, we've had VAT for long, since 1996. That was the first enactment about VAT. Amended in 2000. To date, the proposed new amendment looks at how they can uplift. Is it 5 million? That is, I'll have to cross-check again. 5 million, 10 million threshold. That is when, in a case, I'll have to check later and give a correct version of what is going to happen with this amendment. Nonetheless, we are saying all these years we haven't had any kind of amendment, especially when it comes to the threshold for payment of either presumptive tax or income tax. The threshold has remained of 150 million, 149,999 less 1 shillings out of 150 millions for people under presumptive. And within this bracket, people are paying between 100,000 as presumptive tax to 1 million shillings. A point to note is when you divide 104,999 less 1 shillings by 317 days minus the Sundays, you will get 470 something money, and of which the expenses involved by any trader or importer under that bracket is 222, remaining with a balance of 250 something. But when you calculate how much a Ugandan gets out of any consignment or any good that they sell, it's not more than 10%. When you remove the income or the profit of the trader is not more than 45,000 out of 470. So the question is, where does the trader get the balance? He has a minimum of 100,000 per day for rent of 3 millions, or around 750 if someone is paying 2.5 millions per month. He has not less than 2,000 for washrooms or toilets daily. And that is the minimum, because every shop at least has not less than 3 people. He has parking, he has garbage of 15,000. If you add all this, it comes to 222,000. Earning a profit of 45 or 47, no more than 47 out of 400 daily, and paying wages to the 2 workers or helpers, say 20,000, between 10 and 20,000 depending, daily, without mentioning monthly salary.
All right.
We haven't, as I wound up, we haven't seen much being done to amend the act to enable the changing economic environment,
But this
or to allow the
yeah.
changing.
All these policies and regulations you're talking about have been here. Why this time that you have to rise and then go for a sit-down strike?
No. The sit-down strike came because of the manner in which URA was trying to enforce.
Your complaint is on the manner.
The manner in which that
System.
raised. All of it has been boiling for the last so many years. We have been engaging different government officials, have been engaging URA, have been engaging even the president. And I remember during the introduction of VAT, there was a strike.
Then it becomes a political matter. But when you go to the president, will say it is not me. You have to go to URA, since it is the one that is responsible for regulating and correcting taxes. But also URA in this case will tell you it is Parliament that passes all these taxes. Why have you not gone to the Parliament, raise these concerns?
We have petitioned Parliament severally until recently, when this came up, and I hope you saw what we tried to reach out to the ministers. Not much was being done. We tried to meet. We met with Honorable Gobi, the PSST. We met with Kagwa Police, the Minister of Finance. Not much was being done. It was to hand over our complaints to lead of the opposition in Parliament, government of this country.
Was it fair, sir, to close down the shops, knowing that in the next 24 hours, the country was going to celebrate Eid?
I wouldn't like to say that.
Or you wanted to bring also the people to join the cause?
No, I wouldn't like to say. This is not our cause as leaders, incidentally. We are being forced, and our arms are twisted behind by both government and the business community. And at certain point, we had to tell government that you either detain us in the police cells, other than being butchered by the business community. When an ordinary person is hurt beyond any, I don't know how to put it, then there is no stopping him when he feels like you have betrayed him. And we are not ready to betray the people who are really up. They are not up in arms, but they are in tears. People will be running out of business on a day.
Jemba, when URA introduced this IFRS system, electronic physical receipting and invoicing solution or system,
Yes.
did you educate you about this system?
When we are consulted, we are never educated, because education takes time. And that is why children spend over how many years?
19
years.
All right.
So
Let me go
if we
Dr.
are talking
Lwanga.
about people, before Dr. Wanga comes in, if we are talking about people who a majority of them are low in education, I wouldn't like to use illiterate. They are low in education. And we expect them to utilize the new system within, when you come and discuss for 30 minutes, 1 hour, when you are having over, say, 100 people, practically that is impossible. And this is why the education is proposing to scale down the numbers in the classrooms.
Okay. Dr. Wanga, I believe that in one way or the other, you pay taxes, but also you have the experience from the region and different countries. How do you perceive this?
Thanks you very much, Comrade Amon, and also I thank a fellow panelist for coming here on this serious issue. Uganda is indeed in a very difficult situation, and our only way out depends when you either have a government with a human face that it will be very considerate to a number of people and their suffering, such that when it comes to tax policies, they are tilted to the various classes of people. That one, we may not have it always. And that's why the traders have been having on and off strikes, to including the civil servants. Then the other element we are having in the country, which is a big challenge, is that the word they call trade union is almost very academic. It is not in practical sense. You don't find trade unions functioning normally and negotiating good conditions of service for the workers, or for private sector driven.
Okay.
Yes, this is where we lost it. And our representative of Kasita, you must realize this. The traders before used it to work very well with in part of the value chain when strategic parastatals were there and you were just coming in. But now that you are thrown on the altar that let market forces work on you, you are suffering a lot. And where are you suffering a lot? Most of the domestic production reduced and you rely on importing. The more your economy relies so much on importation and less of export, you are subjected to a lot of taxes, and that's why you are suffering.
Okay.
And I want to say this point: when you are suffering from taxes, the government can sit down and think of a policy instrument which can lessen some of this burden. When Dr. Frederick Chiluba in Zambia took over government, he found that Dr. Kaunda was suffering from sanctions and the transport sector had collapsed. So he declared from day one that whoever is bringing in a public vehicle is not going to pay any tax. So for the whole year, buses, trucks, minibuses and what have you flooded the streets. Then when he reviewed the policy, he says, no, I'm adding on another year minus any taxation. That gave a foundation for the buoyant transport system in Zambia by the government relaxing import duties on commercial vehicles. So we also need our government to think in that strategic direction. Take an example of cement we use so much. Ever since it jumped up, it has never come back. Suppose he says no, cement is very strategic.
And the same is with fuel.
Yes. Fuel also has never come down. They are very strategic items. Yeah. Yes. Yes, but what do we hear? No, we are going to form a monopoly. A monopoly is negotiating either with Tanzania, either with Kenya. A trader who is suffering will not, and will extend that suffering to another person. So what will happen is that we are going to have a low consumption of goods, while at the same time ZRA is on your door. This time they are so bold, they can even bring a red tape and put it on your door. Is it yellow in color? Yeah, they put it on the door. And yes, and they tell you don't open unless you discuss with us and you put your books in order.
Okay.
So it is terrible. It is very rough. I really want a real discussion, a real conversation between all the stakeholders, because it seems our government is believing in generating revenue more from taxi, and which taxi are so heavy and counterproductive to the economic growth and the development.
Dr. Wanga, will get back to you on whose side or role or duty to end this standard or conflict between the traders and the tax collector. Is it the president? Is it URA? Is it the parliament that passes these taxes without considering the concerns of the people who are paying taxes? I will get back to you on that. And before I engage Bossa, the commissioner, let me get into I put this to you, Professor Ochan, in that by the time commissioner comes in, is going to be answering all these concerns. Professor Ochan, you have studied taxation, and you're also teaching taxation. From your experience, basing on this conflict or this standout that we are having in the country, what is your perspective? What is your observation, and what could be the solution?
Thank you very much. I think one of the things I need to say is that I need to thank you, Omon, and not only that, I need also to thank all the listeners to hear, especially we who are dealing with taxation. We do train people on taxation, and when taxation is not going well in the community, we feel bad, and when the strike is going on, we feel bad. We, as the expert in taxation, we observe many things which is going on in the issue of taxation. One, the administration in income tax. Two, administration in the value addition tax. Three, we have custom tax and other taxes. And all those things cannot operate without tax policy. They must be having what we call what? Tax policy. I'm happy to hear in Serco, as an MP of the area, bringing out the grievances of the what? Of the trader. I really thank Serco to do that, because knowledge is power. And not only knowledge is power, learning cannot continue. Our people who normally give us tax, we need to respect them, especially Uganda Revenue Authority. Our boss is the taxpayer. Even in the Bible, you see Jesus himself say, "You man who collect tax, you give which belong to mine, give the other one belong to the other one." I have been attending programs with the Uganda Revenue Authority, and I admire that they do educate people on taxation. And one time, I also attend the workshop at the Hotel Africana, where the Secretary General, the Commissioner General of the Uganda Revenue Authority, organized the taxes people to come and attend the what? Yes, the workshop. So what I saw, which is really very bad, Uganda Revenue Authority lack research. They have to go down and find out this electronic system which we are bringing, does it work because you are dealing with category of people who are educated and who are not even what? Educated. This is a very simple issue as we professors in tax, because I feel bad because Uganda has joined East African what? Community. His Excellency the President has said, let us go federation. Now we started with 3, 4, 5, now we are 8 countries. Now having
Ethiopia is coming.
Now having 8 countries, good enough, His Excellency the President was given the chairman of the NAM. And not only the chairman of the NAM, he's also given the G chairman China. And we believe we are moving towards successful where we are supposed to achieve the goal of this program. And that's why I'm happy my younger brother here to identify a person like me who deals social anthropology to come and enlighten you. For us who normally deal with administration, we really thank His Excellency the President that he has good programs, but the implementers are not on the what? On the ground. My younger brother here to identify a person like me who deals social anthropology to come and enlighten you. For us who normally deal with administration, we really thank His Excellency the President that he has good programs, but the implementers are not on the what? On the ground. My younger brother here to identify a person like me who deals social anthropology to come and enlighten you. For us who normally deal with administration, we really thank His Excellency the President that he has good programs, but the implementers are not on the what? On the ground. My younger brother here to identify a person like me who deals social anthropology to come and enlighten you. For us who normally deal with administration, we really thank His Excellency the President that he has good programs. Yeah, he has put right. Yeah. So what I wanted to say is that our brothers from Uganda Revenue Authority, I really need to put as a word of advice or word of wisdom to you is that the process of collecting tax, before you collect tax, Uganda need to be educated.
Interesting.
They need to know what type of tax they are going to pay.
Okay.
Then another thing which I also saw which is not good as a tax profession, when you are giving me tax, put tax under consolidations, whereby you say all the tax which you are supposed to be, it is 1, 2, 3, all the tax should be put in the all manner. What I'm meaning here is that you don't bring one tax, I pay tomorrow, and then you come back, I pay. It's not a good thing. That's why our community, like the traders, they get annoyed because now he has paid VAT, again you come for another one. He has paid this one, which is not good. So you make what they call consolidated tax, whereby if it is on electronic, he pays once. And secondly, tax literacy. Uganda need to be taught about tax, different language. You need to make them to understand tax in different what? Language. Especially the tax can be given to them in a local language they can understand. Can be in Luganda, can be in English, Kiswahili, and other languages. Like for your information, I think this is where I can also inform you that Uganda has joined East African Community. And under East African Community, there are 3 languages which is really recommended. 1, English, 2, Kiswahili, then the 3rd one, it is Chinese language. Chinese language also is becoming a language of interest because these Chinese are the main contributor in our development, our growth in the country. And not only that, I think Uganda should admire the system of Chinese system. And that's why you find that in Chinese system also, they like to promote research, administration, and development. So one of the areas which I wanted to talk about this taxation, which I wanted to make it very clear, is that the method of collecting tax. If you want to collect tax, allow low tax, not increase prices. Because what I see is that when you put higher prices, many people will not pay tax. But when you put lower taxes, majority of people will pay what? Taxes. So my advice to Uganda Revenue Authority is that please lower your tax. You will see the tax base expanding. As an expert from tax.
Thank you, Professor.
Yes. But when you make it higher, very few will what? Will pay. So what I see in the strike of the business community, it is lack of awareness. There is no problem there. Somebody brought electronic machine.
But Jemba told us that they were consulted, and that means they were aware about the difference which they are complaining about.
The problem, they were consulted, but they were not educated. Yeah. The difference here is that somebody can be consulted, but there is no education.
Okay.
So what we are trying to say is that the electronic system is a very good thing, because that will eliminate corruption. Because if you use the system, it's very good. I really thank the Commissioner General or people from Uganda Revenue Authority to come with that system.
Okay.
But go slowly. Go slowly.
They have rushed.
They have rushed. The problem is they have rushed.
When they have not done research.
The problem is research. So
thank you, Professor. I'll get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Ibrahim Bossa, you have heard from your fellow panelists in the studios. But I'm also opening my line in the next 10 minutes at exactly 11. I'll be picking your calls on 0776 511 426. The number to call on is 776 511 426, and you'll be telling us what needs to be done to make sure that we improve the tax system in this country. Ibrahim Bossa, you've heard that you are rushing the policies, you are rushing the elections, you are rushing all your programs, and you have not done research, and you expect Ugandans to comply.
Thank you very much, Amon. I would like to also thank my fellow panelists, Mr. Jemba, Dr. Christopher, and also Dr. Ochan, for the submissions. I would like to first paint a picture for our listeners that Uganda as a country, we are collecting very little tax as we speak today. If you look at usually we measure the performance in tax collection using the amount of tax we collect vis-a-vis the GDP. And you'll find that currently we're only collecting 14% of our GDP. And actually those 14%, we have only added the 2 percentage points in the last 4 years. For me, I've found it strange how much work goes into just raising 1 percentage point. But when you compare our country within the other sub-Saharan countries, the average in terms of tax collection in sub-Saharan Africa is 16% tax to GDP. So you realize that we are way behind our colleagues. If you look at the African average in tax collection, it's at 18% tax to GDP. So we are collecting little right now. If you look at some interesting statistics in terms of tax burden, Uganda is ranked at 140. Basically, our tax burden is at about 11.8%. Countries like Kenya are ranked at 93 with 17.4%, Tanzania 96 with 17.2%, Rwanda 97 with 17.1%, countries like Egypt are at 100 at 16.7%. The point I'm making here is actually, even in terms of tax burden, Uganda, we are actually lower than many of our colleagues. We have many colleagues out there, even within our neighborhood, that are basically more burdened when it comes to tax. Now, to illustrate really what is happening, and Jemba started with an issue that many traders are paying their obligations, they know what they are supposed to be doing. So I want to paint a picture just with a single company, and this is a restaurant, a mid-sized restaurant. It's known here in Kampala. Many of you may have eaten there, but I will not mention a name. Now, this restaurant was supervised for 2 weeks. And this restaurant is on the IFRIS. It is using the electronic physical receipting and invoicing that I will be explaining to you. And when we looked at their returns, in terms of filing. In 2 weeks, on average, every day, they were reporting 48 e-invoices. They were paying 285,000 in VAT per day on average. They were having a take-home of 1.5 million shillings on average per day in the 2 weeks we were supervising. Then we came in with some kind of enforcement. Our enforcement means getting an officer and actually sitting next to the person who is on the register. And what their job is to do is to observe and make records. In the following 2 weeks, when we were doing that, on average every day, they were registering 197 e-receipts. They were paying on average every day 1.1 million shillings in VAT. Their take home on average in those 2 weeks per day increased to 6.5 million shillings. The picture I'm just trying to create to you is that we also have our businesses that may not be very honest in the way they transact. And this stems back from where we are coming from. Our fathers used to have 2 books for their businesses. You have a book that you keep close to your heart where the real figures are, and then we have a book that you give the taxman. Because remember, we run a self-assessment regime. It is you to decide and say, this is how I performed, so this is the tax you'll get. Now, IFRIS around the world has been, it's called different names, but it is the same thing. It's an electronic transaction system. Has been brought basically to monitor VAT. It also monitors pay as you earn, and it also monitors income tax. That's what people may not know, but its primary use is VAT. You see, if I have data on VAT, I'm also able to know what income you're likely to get. I'm also likely to know the kind of employees you're using and maybe what to expect in terms of pay as you earn. So the other ones are secondary. So it was brought basically to improve the collection of VAT. Why? The way VAT is calculated, if you're using a manual system, the chances of you making errors, either knowingly or unknowingly, are very high. And we realized that, say, for example, countries like Kenya, Tanzania, and Rwanda introduced this electronic system way back 2007. So for us, we're the late people. We only started in 2021. It was introduced in 2019. It was 2019, but because of COVID, the implementation started 2021. Now, the picture. Currently, if you look at Rwanda, Tanzania, and Kenya, their collection for VAT contributes 35% to their total collection in terms of revenue mobilization. And that could speak to the use of systems like these electronic systems. Uganda, our collection is at 15%. VAT contributes 15% to the entire collection. And yet, VAT is expected to be the best performing tax worldwide. And even the 15% we're talking about, we have just reached 15% in the last 2 years. We have been basically collecting about 13.5%. So our VAT has been performing very poorly. So what happened is that Uganda saw the wisdom also to adopt technology for us to be able to have businesses that meet a certain threshold being supervised, so that they are using a system that has electronic transactions that are visible to the business. And being visible to the business, meaning that you also manage your business better. You know what you purchase and in what amount. You can stock manage. It has a stock management module. You can manage your sales. You know what you have sold. So there are those things that you may not even need an accountant, because the system is doing it for you. And you can actually file returns very easily, very simply, and it removes this business of negotiating. So you only pay the tax you're supposed to pay. So when this was introduced, on our part, we also had objectives why this is there. And if I mention these, maybe they may ring a bell. If we're using IFRIS, we as the taxman are able to see somebody who is evading tax. If the Ugandan is evading tax, I'm sure they would be worried. We're able to see somebody who is suppressing sales. So if somebody is in that habit, probably they may be worried. We are able to see somebody who is dealing in invoice trading. Now, invoice trading, these are people who will issue fictitious invoices and don't supply anything, but come and claim VAT from us in terms of credit. These are big monies we talk about, and many of them have been caught because we now have systems. We're able to see people who are dealing in VAT fraud. So these are things that in the past, without technology, would have been very difficult to see, because that means we have to take people every time to audit every taxpayer. So when IFRIS was introduced, basically it was introduced in phases. So we started with the big boys. That is the manufacturers, government departments, and then we came cascading. We went to the medium-sized enterprises like supermarkets, like hardwares, and we have now come down to people like the wholesalers and our brothers and sisters in Chikubo. So it was cascaded, and we realized that while the big boys could do a system-to-system integration, like Mr. Jimba was talking about, our people downstream would not be able to afford it. It is true, many big companies already have like accounting softwares. People use QuickBooks and these other kind of technologies. So for them, what they needed is actually to integrate their system with the URA system. So you only need an integrator, but it costs money. So what we did downstream is to introduce electronic devices, EFDs. So this would be purchased by business. Many supermarkets have this, and that's what you use to dispense. But the device also costs $1 million shillings. So while the medium-sized enterprises were able to afford that, when we came down to Chikubo, they said, no, we can't afford that. And when they did so, I think the Commissioner General was in Chikubo in November last year, and they mentioned two things about IFRIS. One, we don't understand it. Two, it is expensive. And he promised, one, I will educate you, and two, I will find a mechanism that is cost-effective for you. Between that time, we have developed a desktop app that you can put on a standalone computer or a tablet, and you use IFRIS, or you can download an app, a mobile app. You go to Google Store or Apple Store and you put it on your smartphone. All you need is just a small digital printer, and you're able to use IFRIS and these modules of e-receipts. So that one basically brought down the issue of cost. Anybody could it. Then went on a campaign to basically educate. Since November last year to last month, we basically poured our staff into Chikubo and the Central Business District. In particularly Chikubo, we were able to visit 110 arcades. We went door to door, shop to shop, basically engaging taxpayers. And on our record, those who allowed, some people may not, those who allowed to sign on our register as having been visited and been impacted were over 15,000. They allowed us.
You're consulting them or you're educating them?
Educating. Our education is about hand-holding you, sensitizing you. One, remember we are saying we're only visiting people who should be on VAT. For you to be on VAT, you must have a threshold of 150 million and above per year. Okay, so we go and visit them and say, you're supposed to be on VAT. Are you registered? Yes, I'm registered. Are you issuing e-receipts? Yes or no? If you are not, then we basically onboard you. We help you download an application, show you how to use it, what challenges you're having. Some of them are already on the system, but they have complaints and issues. So that's the engagement we're having. We're allowed to put a tax hub in the middle of Chikubo for 10 days straight. Inconveniencing because it inconveniences the traffic, but we were given the permission, and we have over 345 taxpayers who visited that hub for assistance. So at the end of the day, we did 80 workshops in those malls. So basically, our effort to educate, our effort to sensitize and handhold is deliberate and is specific, and it cannot end. Basically, we have been doing tactile education all over, and we will continue doing it. Because of today, it is easy to create transparency. Where somebody says, oh, I was not educated. Today, we have things like social media. We make a deliberate effort that every engagement URA has, it is visible on social media. So anybody following our social medias, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Facebook, whether it is YouTube and so on, you will see our activities in downtown and many other parts of the country. So this is basically to give some form of accountability on what we are doing, but also people to know of what is going on. Somebody can pick a thing or two. Okay. So that effort has been there. So at the end of the day,
are you in any way halting IFRIS now that it has caused this kind of conflict and stand out?
I need to tell you.
It is going to continue.
I need to tell you that electronic physical receipting and invoicing in Uganda, just like in many other countries, is the new standard for revenue mobilization. What we can do is to engage and find amicable ways of onboarding people, assisting people to onboard. People can onboard in stages. Because right now what we are doing in Chikubo, first of all, we are only supervising the registered VAT taxpayers. Meaning that if you're not on the VAT register, there is no reason why you have a hulabalu about this. We see people striking who are selling bananas, they are selling tires, and they have nothing to do with IFRIS. You get it? So at the end of the day, if you are to be on IFRIS, it's only when you have a turnover of 150 million and above.
Okay.
So the other thing that we are doing in there is that there are people who were onboarded on IFRIS previously, and probably now their circumstances have changed. Maybe they no longer have the threshold. We are deregistering these people, but also reassessing others now that have reached that critical mass. So we realize that there's a bit of misinformation out there on who exactly is being impacted, and everybody feels IFRIS is a new tax. So this is double taxation. And we are saying, I think we need to be transparent. Education is still going on. I think we need to enhance our engagement and people get to know the truth. The system is only a supervisory system for us to know what is happening in business and for us to see that we're not negotiating on what is to be paid as taxes. Any business will only pay that is owed to them.
Bwana Commissioner, people still think that you have rushed this IFRIS system or solution. This is the time they think that you would have introduced, educated them, and maybe implement it in next 3 to 4 years to come. Why introduce it and then you want to implement it, but also harshly to the people of Uganda and the taxpayers in this case?
I think what people are calling us harsh, because I think there's been a lot of propaganda with that. Many of our staff that go to engage with the taxpayers, usually we have to provide them with some form of security. We know some of our taxpayers. Our staff have sometimes been locked in warehouses and things like that. So, and you see the taxpayer, there's some taxpayers who are outright smugglers. Those people are also ruthless in their way. So usually we have security for our staff, but because this security has been conspicuous, many of the traders feel that they are intimidated, and there's a directive from the Commissioner General to strategically deploy our security so that it is not in the face of customers, but we as the taxman and our officers, we have to coexist with businesses. We will support them, we will handhold them, we will continue to educate them, and just make sure that we develop this country together by we paying that fair share of tax. If I may end by this, Amon, for people just also to appreciate the context. We did a 6-month survey of companies that are basically dealing already on IFRIS. Okay, we looked at supermarkets. These were about 12 supermarkets in Uganda for 6 months, like 6 months, and we realized that we are losing 7 billion shillings in VAT. This is something we would not have been able to do if we did not have the means or the data to be able to tell. We looked at packaging material manufacturers, and we are losing 4 billion shillings in VAT. We looked at sugar manufacturers, we are losing 2.2 billion shillings. Software installers, we are losing 181 million shillings. So basically what shows you is that even where we have visibility, people have found a way, like if it's like in the supermarket, when the supermarket is busy and there's high value goods being traded, the system will be switched off, and the supermarket will claim that there's no network or something, so they go the money away. Every time a customer does not get an e-receipt, that is VAT that will not be remitted, but instead the taxpayer remains with it. Okay, if they realize that the trade is low, then they basically put on the system, and that's what they will report. So it is also inherent that we have people, even our brothers in Chikubo, who have been collecting VAT and not remitting it. And probably the pain we have right now is that here is a system that is coming to say, hey, wait a minute, that you have been keeping does not belong to you, it belongs to the government. Typical example are the landlords. Commercial landlords charge 18% on VAT, and truthfully they have been remitting. But because we now have a system that is monitoring them, we are telling them you have not been remitting the right amount of VAT. Do you know what they have done? They don't want to touch their collection, which has the VAT they have been collecting. They are now asking their tenants to pay on top of their tenancy, to pay an extra 18%. So you can see also the people that we are dealing with. So somebody feels that this VAT is now part of their profit. But Professor, you know that VAT is not paid by a business. If you're VAT registered, you only basically get your output VAT minus input VAT. That little is what you remit, and then the other VAT is sent down the food chain. The person who pays VAT is the last customer. So where businesses are not supposed to pay VAT, why would you be having problems with VAT? Why wouldn't you want to remit the VAT that you have collected? Because at the end of the day, it's not your money. It is put by legislation, and you are a collector of VAT, not a payer of VAT.
Interesting. This is UBC Ground Zero. We are on 5 radio stations covering Uganda, Voice of Bundubujo in Bundubujo, UBC Radio in Kampala, UBC Magic in Kampala, West Nile Radio in Arua, and Butebo Radio in Eastern Uganda. We also streaming live. You can watch live this conversation on YouTube. Just enter UBC Radio Uganda and you'll be part of the conversation. Keep your messages coming through on 0701 24 26 47 or call on 776 511 426 and we shall be able to pick you and you raise your concern. What needs to be done to improve the tax system and tax base in this country? What policies do you think needs to be opted for to make sure that we all are on the same page, taxpayers and tax collectors or regulators? I'm picking your calls after this very break. I'm coming back in just a bit. I pray you don't go away.
Stay
Ampaire Amon Ortega is my name, and I have a privilege and honor to have in the studios of UBC a very special team of guests. We are having Professor Chan Francis, Vice Chancellor, Kentim University, and Executive Director, East African School of Taxation. We have Ibrahim Bosa Chibuka is the Assistant Commissioner, Public and Corporate Affairs, coming from Uganda Revenue Authority. Dr. Christopher Rwanga is the Head of Research and Ideology, coming from Uganda People's Congress. And we have Jemba Molondo is the deputy spokesperson of Kasita Uganda, is representing the traders organization of in Kampala. We're talking about setting achievable strategies to improving Uganda's tax base or tax system in Uganda. 776-511-426 is the number you can call and raise your concerns on what you think needs to be done, or send your messages on 0701 24 26 47. I'll be reading your messages. I can see John from Palisa, Kuchana from Budaka, and Bonesel Wada from Kampala. Let me start with the callers, and then I will be reading your messages. You're live on UBC Ground Zero.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
A very good morning to you. Your name and where you're calling us from?
I'm Pedon Simon Peter from Kawempi.
All right.
So my concern is, if to add it to advise the people who are selling, like if I come and ask you that, man, at least that's only, like they say, you pay like 10,000. But you find someone is pulling ropes, he doesn't want to pay, but he's selling things of 500, 5 million, that's only 10,000, then you pay to pay. Then you remain when you're selling, when you're still.
So your concern is on tax defaulters?
So I want people to catch up.
Okay.
That's all what I am.
Thank you, Verdon. 776-511-426 is the number you can call and raise your ground zero.
Hello.
Ground zero.
Hey, good morning.
A very good morning to you. Your name and where you're calling us from?
This is Obo Bernard. I'm calling from Mbale.
Mbale. Your name again?
Obo Bernard.
Obong Bernard. Okay.
My observation is where Uganda has raised the taxes is a bit high, but they should also consider the lower people. Because now where it has raised, it's like for them they are only considering themselves for
earning less.
Not even. They should lower people who are peasants.
Okay.
Thank
you,
that is
sir.
what they are going to do.
Thank you, Montanas.
You're welcome.
All right. Montanas reaching to us live from Bali. UBC Ground Zero.
Hello?
You're live and clear.
This is Henry Baguma.
You're welcome, sir.
Yes, I'm happy to hear Professor there.
All right, sir.
So my question is, I've not heard any expert talk about we, the consumers. Can I get from the professor and the revenue authority officials to talk to us about the consumers, like me, Henry Baguma? These the local people, not the people who finally are to receive this, and whose interest the government is focusing on. All these debates about the government, revenue, the businessmen, where is the ordinary person, where is the consumer in all this debate? Thank you very much. That's my contribution, or my question.
Thank you so much, Henry Baguma, for those concerns and reaching out. And UBC Ground Zero. Keep your messages coming through on 0701 24 26 47. I'll be reading them and also picking your calls if time allows. Keep calling on 776 511 426. If I can use this minute to go through your comments, dear listener from the other side of radio. Someone says, I'm John, I'm listening from Palisa. You people who have traveled, you would appreciate that Uganda, we are still better in terms of taxation. People are paying so many taxes and so highly in different countries. Uganda, we are still low, though I am seeing that we are going the same direction and taking the same road. I pray that URA, you reduce on the speed. Someone is called Kuchana is listening in from Budaka. Is saying inference is not a problem, but the way URA has introduced it and is rushing to implement it. That is sad. There is time to introduce, educate, and implement. Instead of educating, you are rushing to implement it. And he said it is very sad. Bonne Selwada says, we are paying really a lot. URA, please let us have a break. One tax at a time. Why bring all the taxes and these policies at the same time as if Uganda is ending tomorrow? Those are the same some of the concerns coming in from the people of Uganda who are part of us from the other side of radio. And someone also says, good morning UBC, this is Muhuri and Navasa, Mbale town. My concern is on taxes. You know, Uganda's right now we are living in. The heads never evaluate and do research before imposing their taxes. Because imagine they do it not having concern on the lower ground floor people. So it means that that is a concern from Muhuri Navasa from Mbale town. Keep your messages coming through on that very number 701 24 26 47, and I will be answering those concerns. Allow me go back to the studios, and I will start with the professor and Professor Chan. I would pick your concerns, especially the concerns of the people. And this second hour is always the rush hour. I would request you, gentlemen, to use a few minutes, and because we still have a lot on our table to tackle. Let me start with you, Professor.
Thank you very much. I think if you hear the concern of the people, they are all saying the same thing, that the URA are rushing, and those are most of what people are saying. But what I wanted to make it very clear is that what is taking place is that the electronic system is a good one. Many countries have tried, especially in Rwanda is going well, even in Kenya is doing well. But the whole thing, as we have been saying, it needs education. Literacy in what? In education. Then another thing which I also want to advise, as I've been saying, is that URA also should lower tax. They should allow tax. Then when they allow tax to lower down, the tax base will increase. But the more you make tax to be higher, you will not realize that people are paying what? Tax. So my advice is that let the URA lower tax, and the tax base will what? Expand.
Interesting.
That's the policy we have at in tax policy. Then another thing which I also want to advise them is that it is very important that they do research before introduce something in the community, because right now all what is taking place in Kikubo, the problem is who are taxpayer. So the URA should know we have the wholesaler, we have the retailer, we have the manufacturer, we have the wholesaler, and we have the retailer, and we have the local people on the ground. So it's very absurd you find a person selling Bugoya is also striking about the electronic system, which is not proper. So what I'm trying to say is that
Professor, we are looking at a very chain.
What we are trying to say here is that let the URA explain this electronic system for all people who are entitled to know to know who are the people using the electronic system.
All right. Thank you so much. Jemba, you come in.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You have heard the people of Uganda.
Yes, Emon, once again. Yeah, I appreciate the calls and the messages sent in by the general public in view of what is being discussed from this studio. Just like the professor, I really support what the professor has just said. It's very, very important if we are to meet the principles as set by the World Customs Organization. The principle of fairness, the principle of certainty, the principle of predictability, which is not apply here in Uganda. Today you pay 10 millions for goods coming into the country. The next day or the next 1 hour, another person, a colleague of yours, bring in the same items and he pays 17 millions. I'm giving an example, which is really, really terrible. Secondly, we should move away from presupposing. And this is what is happening with URA. URA and the country of and the government of this country are failing to appreciate the role of Ugandans in one way or another one. And this is why when we are joining the customs union, the protocols are clear. When you are joining in a customs union, the lowest import duty is supposed to be taken. When we are joining the customs union, we moved where Uganda was at 15% import duty, we moved to where Kenya was, which was 25%. That was really, really terrible, and it's causing a lot of issues here. Then, on the issue of IFRIS, surely IFRIS would have been, if we took the necessary steps, the best for everyone, if we took the necessary steps before implementation. If we agreed we are implementing IFRIS, but we need to revise the threshold of VAT in order to accommodate principally those people or those companies who are above the set limit, that is maybe up, we move it upwards to 500 or even 1 billion. That would be okay. But like I explained earlier and demonstrated, at 150 threshold, by implication, someone's sales are 470 daily, but the expenses are nearly the same as the expenses incurred on a daily are over 220. And the 250 cannot be the capital. The capital is above. The capital is over is supposed to be over 40,000. You make the threshold remain at the level when the enactment was made in 96. When food was a plate of food was costing something like 2,000 Uganda shillings. The best. A cup of tea was at 500 or even 300. The best coffee of best tea. And right now we are buying a cup of coffee at 10,000. We are buying a plate of food, an average of 10,000. An average of 10,000. We have transport.
Jembo, we seem to be lamenting and complaining.
We are not lamenting.
But when URA is still remaining on its position and they are not changing.
This is what we are saying.
What is next?
This is what we are saying. We need to revise the threshold for VAT. We need to amend the VAT Act to incorporate, to lift up the threshold for VAT for presumptive and both income tax. That is this is what we propose. 500 millions for presumptive and $1 billion for income tax. This way we are going to be able to implement IFRIS, starting with the people who are collecting that much, as we try to educate the others. Even the person who is managing a shop, a bigger shop, which can collect say 50 millions in a year, can apply to join the IFRIS freely, not being forced. Then we have the motivation, and this is where the problem comes from. Why is URA rushing? The key motivator are the bonuses given by government for correction of meeting a target by URA. If we can remove that and we motivate both, we motivate the taxpayers and we motivate URA at the same time. If the taxpayers pays more, this is what we are going to do. If URA corrects more, not forcefully, but through education, through sensitization of Ugandans, showing them the importance of paying taxes, then we are going to give you this. But not using the gun.
Is the sit-down strike still on?
The sit-down strike is on.
And if they don't change or comply,
we are not looking at only IFRIS. We are looking at infiltration of the foreigners into petty business. We have so many Chinese, we have Pakistanis, we have a number of them into ordinary businesses where we would have expected Ugandans. Even my son from university, I would able give him 2 million and he joined that business. We are having the Chinese there. We are having Chinese who import already made goods or items, take them to Namunkekera, pack them, they bring in materials 90% ready, pack them and then take them door to door. If you haven't seen it, we have seen Egyptians deep down in Buwaya. If you know Buwaya, Kasanje deep down in Buwaya, someone moving with a freezer, someone moving with a cooker, someone moving with a TV set, vending them. Okay. How are we expecting our own to stay in business? That is another one before IFRIS. Then we have the issue of VAT. The question is, who is supposed to pay VAT on rent? It's not about the kilometers, not about the sudilis. It's about all people owning rentals.
Okay.
Even the small one owning small rental is going to be charged, but at what level and at how much? Kenya is charging VAT on rent differently. UK is charging 5% on rent, VAT on rent, and Uganda is charging totally abnormally. That is at 18%. When are we supposed to charge VAT on goods entering the country? Are we supposed to charge them at SIF value, or should we look at the value that is being added when goods are entering the country. That is, I have freight charges. That is the added, should have been the added value. I have an air ticket. That should have been the added value. But when you charge me on SIF value, on the cost of the goods and the freight of insurance and the freight of the goods, that is totally not right. We are saying, can we go back on the drawing table? We try to find out where the shortcomings have been coming from.
Okay.
If we can do that for the good of Ugandans. Lastly, someone was talking about banana sellers. This is what we all forget.
That they're also joining those who are not
definitely. And you know why?
Not meeting the threshold.
You know why? Who eats the bananas in this town? The business community. And the survival and livelihood of that woman carrying a basket of banana on her head lies with the business community who buys them. If she's going to come with a basket of banana and sit on the streets of Kampala when they are empty, tell me who is going to buy them and how is her family going to survive? Okay. She's surviving on 3,000, 5,000 shillings daily for her family and herself to meet all her needs, to meet her health services, to meet the education of the kids, to meet everything. Okay. So we are saying we need to go back.
Thank you, Jemba. I will give you much more time to raise those concerns. I also have a message that is in line with what you have just talked about investors who come in the country and they turn into hawkers. Someone says our Ugandan hawkers are harassed by KCCA, while Egyptians and Lebanese are freely hawking saucepans and utensils in the same city environment. Yet they came as investors. Does URA consider them or see them, or their eyes is concentrating on those Ugandans that are making it an effort to put some business and later on to be milked by URA, which doesn't bring back to the people? Investors have been given land. Someone also says Carolina. Some investors have been given land under different incentives, but the raw materials here, but most of them still get their raw materials abroad. How are Ugandans helped in this? Yet they keep being taxed every day. Section 23 of the Investment Code suggests that if the investor reaches here in Uganda and changes the business different from his or her license or work permit, he or she should be deported. My question is, do these foreign hawkers, or they change business when they reach here and well knowing that the laws here in Uganda, they never work and never implemented? Also, someone says this is Jack. Jack is listening in from Entebbe and says, withholding tax, they've been changing withholding tax, but no businessman has ever received this back. Has ever received back this money which you hold. Why not think of how much to the same Jack says, why not you think of how to expand our tax base, not limiting themselves in the same business, which will end up exploiting Ugandans and taxpayers in this case, that they will get tired and close down their business, frustrating the growth of the businesses and the economy of this country. Keep your messages coming through. I'll be reading one by one. Let me get Rwanga.
Yes, please.
Double taxation. Investors that turn into hawkers in this country. URA charging withholding tax but never gets gives it back to the people, and many other concerns that are coming from the people of Uganda.
I think here what our people are trying to say, the ground is not leveled. Okay, the ground is not leveled. People from outside the country, it is relatively easier for them to join in the business at whatever level of the government to pull them up, okay, and perform and go into transition and become formal traders or formal businessmen. This they can do by even encouraging them to form associations with these good loans which carry, and you know that at the end of the day Kasita has a local DNA, and you know that at the end of the day Kasita has a local DNA. It will not go if it is well. Organizations are not supported. Even when money is earmarked, bank, you must be super ordinary. You must be super ordinary. There you are going to find that local businessmen, they will not even manage to compete with these people who have come. And even if these people have come and they are only doing wholesaling, they would again defeat the Kasita people who are doing retailing, because they have a backup of their home governments and of their companies. So they bring things in thousands and qualitative things, items and goods. Because of that influence, sell them and defeat you locally, who is producing those mangoes, but you have not even managed to package them and to be ready for it, and find the worker much easier. Then the other element we are having here, though he has talked about that we lower the tax seriously, and creating these enabling incentives of all laws, that once, let me say, you are involved in agriculture, there is a subsidy on fertilizer, on seeds input, okay? Those are deliberate things which help, okay? Yes, but we don't do that, okay? Then the other element also where our people will have to complain that multiple taxes or what have you happening and hitting them very badly, the government has failed to realize that it is having heavy public expenditure. Everything they are having is heavy. Look at the parliament alone. You are talking of over 500 members of parliament. Okay. Look at the cabinet. Okay. It is so huge. Look at the local government structures. They are so huge. And those local government structures are supposed to be funded from the local taxi payer. And the URA is given a target at whatever cost can you come back with this money. Can you tax whatever is taxable? And in most cases, the government has also created the situation that anything almost is taxable.
Okay.
If we are looking at private schools which have come in to help the government, why should they be subjected to a heavy tax? They are offering a service, which service we all need. And we know that the more we invest in education, the more we create a better future for our country. And when we have invested in education, especially of this time, we would not be even having arguments with the next generation of this electronic receipting. People would be used, people would be understanding. But now, our government will tax private schools, and most of the parents have failed to take children or to pay school fees.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So these are sort of issues we are having, and these issues are very, very serious. You cannot underestimate them. And when the trader decides to down tools, it is a very, very bad thing, because it sends a political message.
So you think that this is turning into a political matter?
Yes, it has to. Because why do you put policies which hurt the traders, which hurt your people?
But going to the political line, if they meet the president, they will tell you it is the parliament that passed these policies. Are you saying in any way parliament passes these policies without considering the people of Uganda and taxpayers in this case?
Let me be very open. You bring out a manifesto of any political party, you will not find them evolving a policy on taxation. So such that taxation has remained a preserve as if it is of Ministry of Finance, which does it and then it drops it at the Parliament. And you know that our Parliament, we are so many there. Whether you take it to the committee, they don't really scrutinize it and synchronize it with the ordinary person. Okay? The ordinary person is suffering. Any tax, however sweet you may call it, however much you may sugarcoat it, people are suffering. This argument we have had that the household levels have been empowered to produce 18 million shillings a year. I want you to move home to home in villages and you see physically that 18 million people. It is 18 million shillings. It is what is making us suffer. Okay? You sit somewhere and you say you have put in economic policies which deliver 18 million people, 18 million shillings by household.
Okay, I'll give you more time, Doctor. I would love to bring in Commissioner, but also as Commissioner comes in, there is a concern, another concern of out of 135 districts that we have in the country and more, it is only 3 districts in central Uganda. We are talking about Kampala, Mukono and Wakiso that pay tax to the tune of 78% of the country's GDP. Isn't this unfair to the residents and the business communities in these 3 districts, which contribute 78%? If you look at Kampala, contributing 36%, Wakiso 33%, Mukono 9%, whereas Masaka is 4% and Jinja 5%. 3 districts meeting 78%. What happened to other regions? What happened to other countries? We're talking about increasing the tax base, but we're concentrating in just one area and forgetting the others and putting the burden to the Kampalan residents. Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Amon, and I would like to appreciate the deliberations and comments from my fellow panelists. There's a lot of good information here that should be in our engagements and discussions to enhance tax policy and tax administration. So it is unfortunate that instead of actually doing so, we are on the streets and closing shops. There's a lot of good information here that should be helping the country. It is not the design of the Uganda Revenue Authority that most of the taxes are collected in Central. It so happens that many businesses have concentrated in the central CBD and the neighboring areas, and your calculation is almost correct even for our statistics. But I think that's why the government has come up with some deliberate policies of giving certain incentives for people to invest in different regions of the country. If you read the different tax laws, there are incentives in the Income Tax Act. If you're building a hotel that is 150 miles out of Kampala and those kind of things, the industrial parks that have been created, people are given incentives to actually invest there. So I think that's why, because you want to distribute that kind of wealth. But again, I think that's why we have this the kind of tax system we have. You see, with taxation, while people will expect the taxes are a quid pro quo, but the fact is it's not by law. Taxes are a mandatory transfer from people who have, so that we can help all those who don't have. I've been to places like, for example, Koboko, and in a year where I was in Koboko was actually collected taxes of 7 billion, but the government was supporting Koboko with 37 billion as a district. So in the central here, through taxation, that is how also we're able to help other regions of the country. It is what it is. But I would want to put my emphasis, first of all, the tax register. Our tax register, let me begin with the tax register for Uganda has actually grown. From 2020, the tax register stood at 1.5 million, and today we have 4.3 million. That work has happened in the local government. So ideally the essence is, if you are registering for business, ideally you need to have a TIN. If you're having a business permit or license from KCCA, you need to have a TIN and that kind of thing. So we have been able to grow the tax base, but we are still below par. Our target was to have 5 weeks, we will hit it. But what we have discovered is that even when you onboard taxpayers, it takes time for them to become productive. So we have programs like onboarding, where we handhold taxpayers for periods of like 6 months to get them productive. On our tax register, we actually have about 1 million taxpayers that are dormant, that have never paid 1 penny of taxes, but they have an income. So we have that onboarding process going. So sometimes when we're talking about widening the tax base, is that there's just a lot that goes into there. Statistically, from the from UBOS, about 10 million Ugandans have an income or some form of income or employment that would have been able to pay tax. So we still have people who are largely in the informal sector. We don't know where they are, we don't know who they are, we don't know where they produce from or even how they earn. So we still have a big gap for us to get there. When we come to businesses, and these are the focus of IFRIS, ideally. But this is what is interesting about the 56,000. Over 20,000 of these are businesses that are using IFRIS, the electronic receipting, and they are not obligated to. They don't meet the threshold of 150 million plus. The reason they are using it is because they are over 20. In fact, the figure is about 26,000 businesses that are using IFRIS, the electronic receipting, and are not obligated to do so. They are only doing it because of 2 things. One, the packages that IFRIS offers, like the stock management, sales, and that is because it gives you transparency. Even you as a business owner, even if you are away, you have your business in your palm.
Okay.
But 2, others also want to be able to supply big businesses like the government, like supermarkets, because these people need e-receipts to be able to get their credits in terms of VAT. So the question here is, if you can have businesses that can voluntarily use IFRIS, how about those who are obligated? Because those who are obligated, we know, are the big boys. You have at least a capacity of over 150 million. So that is something we need to deal with, and we can discuss that.
And Jembe was requesting that if you can reduce, especially the threshold on VAT, how are you considering that?
I think that is a good proposal, and like I said, there are many proposals here that should be in the boardrooms to enhance tax policy. But I think we are misplacing them on the street. But at least I'm aware. I have seen a proposal. This is now just hearsay because it is not factual. I've seen a proposal to increase that to 500 million. Let us see how far it goes. So there are some works also happening at the ministry level, including on our part.
Commissioner, someone says we have people who import and dodge taxes, meaning we are taxing very few Ugandans and leaving others to import to this country freely, and we want to raise taxes. How shall we raise taxes when a certain percentage of Ugandans are not meeting their taxes?
Very good concern. Now, those are some of what we call tax leakages. When somebody imports and does not pay taxes, you're actually a smuggler.
There are also big boys in this case.
They are smugglers. The law will classify you as a smuggler. If you bring something and you dodge or you go through customs without paying your fair share of tax, you have smuggled. And we have a treatment.
To smuggle when you have the systems in place?
2 things. One, we have people who basically will use porous borders. That means you circumvent the designated custom area. Those ones, we have a treatment for them, and we have a very big program on anti-smuggling and on the waters and ABCD. And the tactics we use are not for ordinary taxpayers. When we're in there, smugglers have guns, we have guns, and sometimes you have had people also losing life in this kind of battles. So that's a different ball game, but it is something that we pay focus on. And every year we report on how much we have recovered in terms of smuggling, in terms of taxes. We mention the interventions we have made in smuggling and the taxes. We have them in all our reports. But we also have people who basically connive with some of our staff
with the system
on issues. If you find staff that lack integrity, that are corrupt, so we have people who will basically connive, and that's where that issue of top-up comes in, by the way, that people do not like. That if you come and clear through this customs system, you will be cleared, but sometimes there's another team that may follow up with you and ask you for top-up. That is after your documentation, your manifests and so on have been scrutinized by a third party within our system.
Okay.
So we have an officer who does the face-to-face, but we have another people who, so when they see that there are gaps in there, then they will tell that, you know, there was under declaration here, there was either forgery here or a misrepresentation, because issues of smuggling take that form. People may represent things. Somebody says, I am bringing t-shirts, and actually they brought jumpers. Those have different, so the declaration will be different. So we deal with this kind of things.
Thank you, Commissioner. Someone also says there is a concern of double taxation, and also Jemba raised that very concern.
Now
how are you dealing with that as URA?
The issue of double taxation, actually, right now in our tax laws does not arise, and I think it just talks to the need for our more tax education. I will give you, for example, Jemba's team, what they will call double taxation. If I give you two examples, because Jemba imports in Uganda, and he will pay import duty, he will pay VAT, maybe infrastructure levy where applicable, or withholding tax where applicable, and he brings goods to his shop. He sells, we have the domestic taxes that will come and ask him for business income tax, because and the profit. Many of Jemba's team feel that that is double taxation. I paid taxes at coming into the country. Why are you asking me taxes when I have sold? But these are two different tax points. Here we are taxing you for the income, meaning if you have not made an income, if you have not made a profit, you will not basically be taxed. So income tax is different from the import dues, the duty that are obligated if you're bringing a commodity into the country. Then others, for example, there are guys who use the container leaders. Somebody cuts 200 million shillings from these other people. So all of a sudden, these people feel that the taxes are too many, outrageous, but the person who's benefiting from them is a middleman who is not.
Thank you. And also someone says, thank you for the program. I have things. It's good for pay taxes that be for control bad life and bad behavior. Written by Soso Simon from refugee camp. Interesting. So many messages coming in, and time is not on my side. I would request gentlemen to use 1 minute each as you give your parting shots and last comments. And in your last comments, URA is planning to raise 31 trillion financial year 2024-2025. Is it in any way going to be hurting the people of Uganda, or we can develop this country together? Jemba, 1 minute.
Yeah, thank you very much. About 1 billion is to be raised within the next final year. I know Ugandans should tighten their belt, because when President Museveni says he wants money, when he wants taxes, he'll make sure that he gets it. However, also government should get ready for the repercussions of high-handedness in setting targets. We are saying taxes are meant to develop countries, but we cannot make this economy a tax economy. We should look at ways how we can grow our taxes generically, gradually, through systems that enabling systems from sector to sector. We know where our strength lies, that is a forceful enforcement of taxation might not work, and it has ramifications which might not be good to both sides. Then lastly, to Ugandans. Here we are treating the symptoms. So the matter is, all this would have been okay if the size of government can be trimmed downwards from 560 districts, from 350 RDCs to 50 RDCs, or if we can go the Kenyan way. Kenya has 25 cabinet ministers. We have 84. Kenya is working through counties, and they are working really, really wonderfully. If we can do that, we go county way or provincial way, we can even manage it better. But otherwise, short of that, with the size of government, we are going to keep crying about taxation. We are going to keep crying about everything. And we are the people agitating for size of government because of regional representation, because of cities. We have to
team, and that's very important. So on my behalf, as I present the Institute of East African School of Taxation, Revenue and Budgeting, I appeal to my brother is that let us go down, we learn, this new system is good. It has worked in Rwanda, it has worked in Kenya.
Doctor, Tanzania is suspending it.
Yeah, Tanzania suspend because there is lack of education there. But for us here, what I'm trying to say, as we are joining East African community, you find that whether you like or not, that thing should come on board. Okay. Because you know very well that in the East African community, we must have a common goal on implementing even taxation. Everything should be the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Dr. Wanga?
Yes, indeed, the taxation is an indicator of the economic direction we want to take. If there is a younger industry you want to boost, you give it tax concessions. Now, what does it mean? Uganda is depending so much on agriculture, but agriculture is becoming a mockery. The subsidies have been removed. The credits have been removed. In fact, most farmers get money from these other people outside the normal banking who give credit at higher rate, such that where our engine of development is agriculture, it has been totally neglected. Whether marketing, whether financing, whether extension services, they are not there. And that neglect has an effect which pulls down the country. Where we are wasting time that we call in foreign direct investment, give it all good incentives, it doesn't work. It is our people who are the pillars of Uganda, who will see Uganda of today, of tomorrow, and in the future. Now, we need to work out policies that lift a burden on his head. But now, we don't do those policies. You find that any Ugandan who works from home for work, if he boards a border, it is very expensive. If he boards a public transport, it is very expensive. If he drives his own car, he finds the roads in a damaged situation. Now a question comes in. Our taxes we pay heavily. What do they do? When do we enjoy our tax? Go to the hospital. You will be surprised that you will be told to pay registration fee, to pay consultation fee, pay for the medicine, and even the medicine they will have courage that we only have aspirin, we only have Panadol. This one will go and buy it, okay? And then from there we see another situation. Any serious officer, maybe an MP, his life is under danger. He will be given a number of vehicles to escort him, a number of policemen, a number of soldiers, and very few realize that it is the taxpayer who is going to meet that. Okay, so some of these issues, let us come out and be very, very open.
Okay.
Then also our politics has been made very expensive. To stand as an MP before you start talking, you must have paid 3 million. 3 million for what? When electoral commission is funded by government. Mention about standing as a president in a presidential race. 20 million. You have to pay it before you start talking. So I'm calling for a human face in all activities going on in the country. Thanks very much.
You're welcome, Dr. Wanga. Many messages coming in, but because of time, we may not be able to go through them. But one that I will end with is Godwin. Godwin says we pay these taxes and never benefit from them, but apart from those who work in government, they need the vehicles, they need security, they need fuel, and the ordinary Ugandans who meet these taxes, end of the day, they die in hospitals without medicine and doctors to attend to them. We don't put our goods on the market because we don't have good roads and many others, and this becomes a betrayal to the taxpayer. So many messages coming in. We may not be able to read them all, but if time allows, next time we're going to be considering them first. And most importantly, URA is targeting to correct 31 trillion next financial year 2024-2025. Would love to hear it from you, from the horse's mouth, Commissioner. How are you able, or how are you going to correct this?
Thank you very much to our listeners. Since COVID to date, we have been collecting taxes without any new tax policies or new taxes introduced. We have been collecting taxes at the same rates, and year by year, ever since COVID, we have been increasing the collection of taxation. How have we been doing it? One, we have enhanced automation, and that automation is helping us to be able to close the customer journey, make it easy and more flexible for people to pay taxes, and that is something that is key to us. If you hear the electronic fiscal receipting and invoice ability to collect some of the taxes like VAT, the digital tracking stamps are also helping us to collect local excise duty. We're expanding the tax base, but also now focusing on getting productivity out of the taxpayers. We believe that these measures, among others, like issues like our performance program within URA, we have a new restructuring to make sure that our structure is suited to meet some of these challenges. We have some interesting audits that are happening, especially like in telecommunications, and they're unearthing a number of areas that probably were unknown to us where this money will be coming from. We are very optimistic that working with Ugandans, we will be able to collect this money. And people, if I may call them people at the bottom of the pyramid, need not worry. Because in Uganda, if your turnover and you're doing a business is 10 million and below, you don't pay income tax for the business. If you are between 10 million and 149 million and a few shillings, you are paying a presumptive tax. This presumptive tax was designed for small businesses who may not be able to file returns, who may not be able to have business records, and it starts from 80,000